Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton with Throw is underway. The Monday edition has arrived. And, Chad, we've got Bobby Carpenter and Sean Merriman coming up later in the show. And plenty of reaction to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs and much more in the headlines department. But we start with what has been a fantastic weekend of football, capped off by what's going to be some great matchups for the NFC and AFC Championship games.
Yeah, one of the media darlings and nation's darlings team, the Detroit Lions, moving on. The other one, the lovable loser, Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Well, they lovably lose once again in horrific fashion for any Bills fans out there. And plenty to react to from over the weekend. It'll be great having Bobby on later in the show and Sean Merriman. Hutton, an eventful weekend, and we can't wait to talk about all of it.
Yeah, and it sets up two great quarterback matchups, too, with different storylines. Mahomes and Jackson. Lamar Jackson getting the win over Houston. Baltimore advances after a 1-3 playoff record. Lamar Jackson, the presumed MVP of the NFL in 2023-24, he plays a great game, especially in the second half, making some quick adjustments at halftime with getting the football out fast. And then they dominate in the second half against Houston. That sets up a matchup against the team they're going to have to go through. Any team would. Buffalo can't get past Kansas City. Can Baltimore? And then the nightcap, we will see Jared Goff against Brock Purdy for a chance to go to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Jared Goff, who was traded away after taking the Rams to a Super Bowl, where they lost to the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. And Brock Purdy, who couldn't make it past the championship weekend a year ago because of the elbow injury. And they immediately went back to him in San Fran. They said, no, he's the presumed starter until he proves he's not. Many wanted the opportunity for maybe even Sam Darnold to get a look during a 3-game skid where San Francisco dropped games and Purdy wasn't playing well. No, they stuck with him, and here he is coming up in the clutch when it mattered most in a drive to go and get the win over Green Bay. The Goff-Purdy QB matchup for the right to play in the Super Bowl 58 is interesting. The storyline of the last pick in the draft, and then, of course, Jared Goff, who was forgotten, supposed to be a placeholder, and now he has the Detroit Lions on the doorstep of the opportunity to win their first world championship, their first Super Bowl.
It's great. First overall pick versus last overall pick in a quarterback matchup. But surprisingly enough, both guys who were doubted extremely along the way. One showed up on draft day, or maybe I should say the last draft day, because that's where he went to the 49ers, and no one thought Brock Purdy was going to be anything approaching a star in the NFL after his time at Iowa State. But here is Brock Purdy once again leading this 49ers organization that has become a trademark for consistency under Kyle Shanahan, but not yet winning the Super Bowl. Speaking of not yet winning the Super Bowl, how about Jared Goff? That's the one knock on his career. Got the Rams to the Super Bowl, and they couldn't do anything offensively against the Patriots in that Super Bowl down in Atlanta. So the Rams decided, we're not going to get over that mountain with you. We need someone better than you. So we trade you to the Detroit Lions. And what happens in year one? The Rams go on to win the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, the former Lions quarterback. And now Jared Goff has been left to build it up, not back up, build it up for the first time in Detroit. And now you got Goff outlasting Matthew Stafford in a terrific game. They look even more at ease in a win against Tampa. This is set up now for the quarterback who everyone loved as the number one overall pick, but then fell out of love with, that got shipped off to Siberia of the NFL, which is Detroit, Michigan, versus the quarterback that coming out of college no one thought anything of. But Kyle Shanahan saw enough to think, hey, we'll take a flyer on this guy. And if one of our top picks, Trey Lance, doesn't work out, we'll give him an opportunity. And he's done the most of that opportunity. And here's an opportunity for one of these guys to get to their first Super Bowl. And for Detroit's side of this, their first Super Bowl ever. It's a great story of that matchup of these two guys head-to-head. Jared Goff from the area also, from Marin County, California, in the greater San Francisco area. It's everything you want in a QB matchup. And Brock Purdy did not look good the other night until that final drive. The 49ers offense did not look very good without Deebo Samuel for 3/4 of that game. But He found a way in crunch time to make it happen.
And that's where the quarterbacks are judged.
Yep.
In that moment, even in a bad performance or a subpar outing, he comes up with that drive. Jordan Love didn't, which we'll get to. Chad, going back to Detroit, there's something that is nothing short of perfect to me about this Lions season, because they were the media darling, like Houston's about to be this coming off season. Detroit was that last year after a 1-5 start in year 2 for what was the regime of Campbell and Holmes, head coach and GM. After winning 3 games, they ended up winning 8 and then had all the momentum going into the offseason. And then they've now paired that with an NFC Championship appearance on the road against San Francisco. And on the flip side, the fan base of Buffalo, they're always entertained. And now for the 3rd time in the last 4 years, they end their season with a loss to Kansas City. And they do so Sunday night with a kick that goes wide right after a bomb from Josh Allen goes through the hands of their superstar receiver, Stephon Diggs. You have one fan base who has set the noise record in a stadium multiple times in each of the last 2 weeks, and they're buying in, and rightfully so, for an organization that has had 11 head coaches and 6 general managers. They've gone through an 0-16 season, and they finally win their first division title for the first time since 1993. They win a playoff game. They've now won back-to-back games and a chance to go win the Super Bowl for the first time. And they have to go through San Fran, who's represented the NFC for, the 3rd straight season in this game. And they are a team that always wins the divisional round. They've won 6 or 7 straight now in the divisional round. And they have to go on the road and beat a very talented and star-studded lineup for the 49ers. Buffalo can't get over the hump. They cannot get over Kansas City. Detroit has had to get over a lot. And they have now built their franchise around some players. I mean, drafting high, Chad, you're supposed to be able to have some really good players that come through the door. And I guess they have. They've been mismanaged. Ownership's been an issue. The structure of the organization, from head coach to general manager to quarterback to star-studded players that decide to retire early. Now they have Hutchinson and Sewell and St. Brown. They also have Laporta and Gibbs, and on the defense, Brian Branch. I mean, there are others too, but they have Goff, who's just been confident, and he's been critical to what they do offensively. And in the moment, he's making those plays. I am thrilled for Lions fans, and I am bummed for the Buffalo fans that, have to go through another offseason of anger, disappointment, sadness, doubt. And it's going to be a different offseason for them because they are in salary cap hell, like 41 or 43 million over the cap. And Josh Allen's cap hit is going to go extremely high and through the roof this offseason. And they have what clearly is a disgruntled wide receiver and a distraction from the offseason this past year with Diggs and Allen. Something was just off. And something was definitely off on that final possession with the drop on the 60-yard bomb downfield. That was the first play of a drive that ended with the wide right kick by Tyler Bass, and had everyone looking at history instead of the future.
Yeah, Khalil Shakir looks like the star receiver for the Buffalo Bills, and that's a problem for the Bills because Stephon Diggs should be the star receiver. They have not been on the same wavelength. You mentioned that drop late, but I'll go to a play after that even where they got a chance to win the game if he throws it underneath to a wide-open Stephon Diggs, and instead he's looking deep down the field for who? Shakir, who came up with that big touchdown earlier, who became a star for the Bills in these last couple of playoff games. Now, he's affected a little bit by bodies around him, throws short, or that would have been a possible win for the Bills. I want to go back to before that, though, even with this Bills team. That fumble by Josh Allen. My, oh my, how different the narrative is.
Yes.
If the Chiefs recover that fumble and not his own offensive lineman, because now the blame goes to the missed kick. And everybody's going to talk about Tyler Bass, wide right, again for the Buffalo Bills. 2 words no Bills fan ever wants to hear again, and that's all they're thinking about today. But if Josh Allen fumbles there and that's how they end up eventually lose that game, it's a lot more talk about Josh Allen. Josh Allen was terrific in this game for the most part. He bailed them out a number of times. That touchdown throw to Shakir was miraculous. I have no idea how he made that thing happen. And when he caught it in bounds, I was blown away. That was Josh Allen. It took a Mecole Hardman stupid play of trying to extend the football at the goal line to give them that opportunity. But they had the opportunity. And they came up short, and they couldn't make that the biggest play, that sort of microcosm of everything, not the drop by Diggs, but to me it was Allen not first looking at Diggs the whole way and missing him wide open, and instead of electing to throw it deep down the field to this guy who was a complete no-name coming into this season that had a chance at it but threw it a little bit short. Josh Allen is Peyton Manning. That's what I really feel about this guy. He is this generation's Peyton Manning. Not from a play style standpoint. Peyton Manning couldn't run the way Josh Allen could. Josh Allen isn't quite the processor of information the way Peyton Manning was. They're different quarterbacks. But their trajectory, I believe, I really do, Bills fans, I believe this, is on the same path. This guy will win a Super Bowl, and probably more than one. Because there was a time in Peyton Manning's career where everyone said he can't beat Florida, couldn't do that in college. He's never going to beat Brady and the Patriots. Not going to happen. Not even going to get to a Super Bowl. And what eventually happened was they had a big comeback against the Patriots in an AFC Championship game. Colts got to a Super Bowl, won it. The dude went on to win 2 Super Bowls for 2 different organizations and play in 2 others over the course of his career. I could see Josh Allen having a similar trajectory. And keep this in mind also. Josh Allen has won 5 playoff games already. This is his 6th year. At the conclusion of his 6th season, Peyton Manning had not won a single playoff game yet. Josh Allen has done some things. He hasn't done the ultimate thing yet. But call it hope against hope, blind faith, whatever. And I know Bills fans are struggling right now. I believe Josh Allen's going to win a Super Bowl. I think that is going to be his team and this Bills team destiny eventually. And it reminds me a lot of Peyton Manning of a generation before. And Mahomes is his Brady. That's the mountain they've got to get across. They've got to find a way to beat the Chiefs and Mahomes. And Hutton, we know how difficult that is for anyone in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, but you go through Buffalo to get to Kansas City is what we're seeing. But then Buffalo, whenever they're knocking off the contenders, they can't be one either because of what Kansas City has done. It was another this season where in the regular season Mahomes has had 1,000 less passing yards, 12 fewer touchdowns in the regular season compared to last year. Last year he didn't have Tyreek Hill either. Still threw for 5,000 yards in a season. What they're doing in KC really starts on defense. Mahomes comes up big, but I thought the 2 comparisons defensively for these franchises. The Bills are old. They rely on speed more than size. And by and large, that's okay whenever you're healthy. I mean, they went in with 4 healthy linebackers all back. Milano's their best player, and he's hurt. And whenever you're relying on speed and your top-tier guys are injured, what do you have left? Well, KC, meanwhile, and by the way, they're older. KC, meanwhile, young, fast, and a bit bigger, and they rely more on the pressure up front on the defensive line. That, to me, was a big difference in how Kansas City was able to put up the points that they did with the 27 instead of an offense that looks like they can barely get 3 touchdowns. Mahomes was really good. So was Josh Allen. He's been really good in the postseason. Really good in the postseason. 10 career playoff games. He has 27 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. They are 5-5 with 0 Super Bowl appearances. That's due to Kansas City. That's also due to the Buffalo Bills because this was the year to bust down the door.
Yeah, especially with a home game.
You've got KC on the road. You have an offense that was starting to pick up the pace, but also a team that was winning in different ways and has been in a postseason mode now for a few weeks now, having to make sure they made the postseason. And it was a Chiefs team that's just different, structured in a much different way than they were a year ago. And they still couldn't do it. And it really just, Chad, they went to Diggs a couple other times on that same drive. It was a long drive. Diggs was just off the mark. He wasn't getting separation close to the quarterback. Allen and they were just not in sync. And it starts on that bomb where you see Allen, I don't know if he makes a better throw in his career that nobody will remember.
Yeah.
It was on the mark, and it was a bomb. And Diggs is known for coming down with those.
Yeah,
If he catches
he
that,
launched that ball into the stratosphere. I was thinking, is this thing going to stay in the stadium? The way he released it at the time, it was launched.
Insane. And the fact he dropped it, I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. This is the time to go grab it, and they couldn't do it. And you've got Tyler Bass who misses wide right, but I'm still thinking to myself, it starts with that drop.
He could not leave it up to
great player to great player.
A 44-yard field goal in not great conditions, I'm thinking this is not going to end well for the Bills. And even if they kick it and make it and tie it, still with time left, I'm thinking the Chiefs are going to go down and kick a field goal. Or do something to win the game. So not scoring that touchdown, it felt like it was over then. And then we got confirmation that the Bills were going to Bills themselves once again once he missed the field goal. You knew that was coming. It's an elderly defense for the Bills. You brought that up. That's an issue they're going to have to address, how old they are on defense. The Chiefs were so bad on offense this year compared to their great standard. And you had 51 combined points in this game, 4 lead changes, and then no points in the final, 13, 14 minutes of the game. And it sucks for the Bills because you got that play that Mahomes and the Chiefs, they don't give you. You had the break. You were going to go down 2 possessions, and they're at the goal line, and you get a fumble into the end zone. And that's where I'm thinking maybe this is their year. This is their chance. They got the big break, and now they're going to go down and do something with it.
On a play that I don't know how much closer it could be.
And when I was looking at Josh Allen's face when he's leaving the field, and sometimes you just know. You can feel it. And I'm thinking, this is now left totally up to chance. And we know chance does not favor the Buffalo Bills. This is bad. They had to take that thing in their own hands and take destiny in their own grasp and go down and score a touchdown. And when they left it up to a kicker in bad conditions, I just felt like it was over. And you could tell by Mahomes' reaction. I mean, think of the bullet they dodged to go to Buffalo in that environment, which was terrific. It came through the TV how loud it was there. Terrific environment. They do need to do something the NFL does about throwing snowballs on the field to affect play. I'm surprised there's no announcements or anything about, hey, maybe stop throwing snowballs at receivers in the end zone as they're going to try to catch the ball. Anyway, great atmosphere. And for the Chiefs to win it that way, even when they gave the Bills that late game break the way they did, you got to feel like you stole one if you're them.
Chad, I thought about a comparison over the weekend or yesterday to Kansas City, which is several years ago. We were seeing Golden State with the Warriors after several NBA Finals appearances and going on this dynasty run where they were starting the season just sluggish. And during that time frame, you and I had the chat about, are they just kind of going through the motions? Are they bored because they've been so dominant? I think while KC has not been bored with it, they've had reasons to change a narrative with trading away Tyreek Hill. They flipped their defense around to where the defense was carrying the team this year instead of the receivers that were dropping passes. This road mentality, I think, does flip it up a bit, where they're more playing villain. And I think that does feed into. Mahomes was even saying to the prior to the game, like, hey, I don't mind playing the bad guy here. I've got to go on the road and do it. And in the hopes and dreams, again, of the Buffalo Bills fans. And he does it. He does it yet again. And he comes up with Kelsey, who in the moment is clutch. I mean, they find ways to come up big in the biggest moments, that duo. It's incredible.
And that second Kelsey touchdown was a play from Alex Smith years. Goes back to him as a rookie and young guy in the league that they put into the playbook this week. And Kelsey was begging to run that play against this Bills defense on that really quick screen, and they do it, and they score a touchdown on it. Does this feel like Kelsey's retiring with all the reports out that he may be done after this season?
Because his brother's going out too.
Does this feel like a swan song?
If they win it, this feels like a Gronk storyline more than it does like a definitive. This feels too a bit like the Rams, where we had the Rams going through the Super Bowl run, and right before the game, everyone's wondering, is McVay going to step away and go to TV? Is Aaron Donald going to retire? And then you bring it back. You bring it back again because you're with Mahomes. You're with Mahomes. The NFL doesn't need him to retire. I know that.
I wonder what would make him more likely to retire, a loss or a Super Bowl win. I think a Super Bowl win would probably make him more likely to do it.
I think Taylor would make
if he wanted to do it. Well, certainly Taylor Swift plays a part in this. If he's contemplating retirement, I think being with Taylor Swift,
I don't think
we'd
he
be
is.
blind to say that's not a part of the decision because he's now with the biggest star on the planet. He doesn't look like a guy who's about to retire.
No.
In that game. He's still making some
But
big
he made
plays.
a comment to Peter King after the game as he's getting on a cart to go to see Taylor Swift and his brother Jason. He's like, this is why you play games like this. This is what makes it like the back and forth and the duo between Allen and the duel between Allen and Mahomes and the atmosphere and the kick. And you have Mahomes in the locker saying something like the ball just froze there, it just hung there, watching it from the sideline. That doesn't sound like a player who wants to just step away from that moment.
I don't think so either, but maybe Taylor will force him to
There's still another moment to get there, though, with KC having to go now to Baltimore and face off against another quarterback who is riding and driving down his own path. And, man, is he on a march, and that's Lamar Jackson.
I don't know that I'll raise my hand and say it. I didn't think they were going to win this game for a lot of time. I thought certainly that the Texans would cover.
I did.
And that it'd be very close. I'm thinking we've seen Lamar Jackson in the playoffs before. He's not been good. I don't think the extra rest was going to help the offense. But once again, the Ravens, they're dominant. They're the best team in the NFL, and the numbers back it up. They've played 6 games against teams that at the time were 3+ games over 500, something that the Dolphins would do, and they wouldn't come close to winning the game. What have the Ravens done in those games? They're 6-0. They average winning by 26.2 points against the league's best. They are destroying good teams in the NFL. They destroyed in the second half once they decided to not let Lamar Jackson be a statue for 5 seconds back there just looking for guys and getting sacked or getting pressured. Once it was a quick release game or a quarterback run game, they dominated that second half in route to a rout of the Houston Texans. Lamar Jackson was good, really good in the second half. This is the best team in the NFL. This is when we go back and talk about Bills and Chiefs winning it. If the Chiefs can go on the road and go to Baltimore hosting a conference championship game for the first time since 1971 when they were the Baltimore Colts. In that environment, this is even a bigger challenge for the Chiefs because I think we've slept on just how dominant this Ravens team is, especially when they go against some of the best in the league. And the Texans have been one of the better teams in the league this year, certainly late in the year. With their previous playoff win against a really good defense with the Browns, and the Ravens had no problems.
The Texans went into this game having 25 touchdown drives in their last 9 games. And you mentioned the Browns. They put 31 on the Browns' defense, and they managed a field goal. But here's the thing.
Field goal. They had a punt return for a touchdown. That was it, points-wise.
Here's the difference in what Lamar Jackson's doing. It is just the savvy and the clarity that he has over managing a game now. The reason why Houston was down the way they were late in the game, from midway through the third quarter to the end of the game, they held the ball for like 4.5 minutes total time of possession. I mean, the Baltimore offense smothered them, and they couldn't get the football back because of these long drives that end in points. And you mentioned the adjustments that they made with holding the football and what Lamar did. At halftime, he said, hey, let's went to the offensive staff, including T. Martin, who's the quarterback coach there, and said, hey, we got to get the ball out fast. They were looking at the numbers. He was averaging 3.5 seconds per attempt in the first half against the Texans. And you're right. It felt like he was holding it for 7 seconds back there in many cases. They wanted to keep him in the pocket and exploit Houston's secondary that they felt they could get after. What is the best receiving core that Lamar's had in Baltimore? He's throwing dimes. He was doing so in the first half. But they shortened the release time to 2.7, from 3.5 to 2.7 on average. And they started moving the football. 232 total yards for Lamar Jackson in the second half. 132 were pass, 100 rushing. And he had the touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely, but also 2 rushing touchdowns. He's running the football. I mean, they're still doing the RPO game, which we saw Saturday. The difference is he's also distributing the ball to Zay Flowers. He's got Odell Beckham Jr., Bateman, and now Likely. And they're likely to get some players back offensively this week as well. So I look at the challenge for Kansas City and think this is something where Baltimore has a chance to grab the brass ring the same way Buffalo did. Much different game and game plan. But, Chad, this is a Kansas City team that just doesn't take no for an answer. They welcome a challenge, and they stand up to the challenge because of who's at quarterback.
And if they can go to the Super Bowl this year, it really is remarkable because Baltimore's way better. They're the better football team. They have been all year. And if it can't, I'm not counting Kansas City out, but if Kansas City goes to Baltimore and wins this, it's all about the moxie of Mahomes and that team. And knowing that their season starts in the playoffs and knowing how to win and how to get it done better than anyone else in the AFC. It's really simply that, because I watch what the Chiefs have done all year and what the Ravens have done, and the Ravens are the better team. They got the better offense. Todd Monken's done a terrific job with that offense with the Ravens. McDonald, great defensive coordinator. They're able to scheme it in a way that affects almost everyone. They've been the better team all year, and they get this game at home. The Bills were also, I think, the better team than the Chiefs, and they were hotter late in the year just to get to that point to host that playoff game. And what happens? What always happens. Mahomes and the Chiefs find a way to get it done in the end, even if it's a missed field goal by the opposition. The Ravens had to figure out a way to counter that, get over this hump, because I think they're the better team in this game. And Lamar Jackson's going to be the MVP, and they've been dominating teams that are good teams, 3+ games over 500. They get another one with the Chiefs. Can't wait to watch it, but I think both those quarterback matchups, Goff versus Purdy, and then Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes, I'm ready for every second of these games.
Well, their only loss, the Ravens, you mentioned, against playoff teams, not just teams with 3 or better games above 500, just playoff teams. They're 7-2 this season against teams that made the postseason. A combined score of 268 to 154, and their only loss it came in a close divisional game. One of their losses without Lamar Jackson. So if you just look at what Baltimore's done, defensively, they're doing things defenses have never done. The Ravens entered the postseason with a defense that led the NFL in points allowed, sacks, and takeaways. And that's the first defense to ever lead in all of those 3 categories. Now they're facing Mahomes and a lightened receiving core. Still have to deal with Kelsey. And you've got some injuries now that we're still going to wait on for Kansas City's offensive line out of this game. But Mark Andrews could come back for Baltimore, too, this week. He was close this past week. And this is the next hurdle for Lamar Jackson. The Ravens are 1-3 with Lamar Jackson against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that was the 1-3 playoff record that everyone pointed to going into this past week for Lamar Jackson. This is the new narrative now, the next hurdle. And the question is, can a guy who is locked in and laser focused in Lamar Jackson, who I think after the game, Chad, against the Bills, Mahomes and Andy Reid went out of their way to go ahead and praise Lamar Jackson. Did you notice this? How they love the guy? This is going to be a great game. And then that's the first of a doubleheader where we get Goff and Purdy with another great storyline. And we've already seen, are we about to see a rematch? Baltimore and San Francisco? Because everyone jumped on the Ravens bandwagon when they went to San Francisco and left with a big win.
Well, this time, instead of John facing his brother, he'll be facing Kyle Shanahan. If it's 49ers Ravens again, it could very well be.
How about this stat? Mahomes, 8-2 in the playoffs when trailing by 7 or more points in a game. Kansas City, 8-2 with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And the last 13 AFC Championship games have either featured Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady.
Well, Mahomes, I wanted to bring that point up where he said, I'm comfortable playing the villain, or he knows he's the villain when he goes into Buffalo in a game like that. He better get really comfortable playing the villain because he is going to become Brady. If this team that struggled all year offensively finds a way to get it going in the playoffs and wins a 3rd Super Bowl before he's 29 years old, he's on a Brady and even better path at that point. That's the path he's on, is winning 6, 7 Super Bowl. I mean, what is in line for Patrick Mahomes if he gets his 3rd Super Bowl ring this year of all years? The sky's the limit. So he's only going to become more and more of the villain to everyone else in the NFL because of that success. Brady embraced that role. He loved it. And then by the end of his career, he was more of a likable figure, kind of the granddad of the league. That could be the same path that Patrick Mahomes is on right now. Another crazy stat that I saw, and I think I'm remembering this correctly. Matt LaFleur losing a 4th quarter lead in a divisional round game. In the divisional playoff round, Matt LaFleur has now done that twice. He's 2-2 when leading going into the fourth quarter. Andy Reid and Bill Belichick are a combined 17-0 when leading at any point in the fourth quarter of the divisional round combined. And LaFleur's lost it twice in that game.
And this is Shanahan's first win when trailing by 5 or more points in the fourth. Is that right? Did I read that right? That's crazy for Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
How about
17-0, though, for having a lead at any point in the divisional round for Reid and Belichick?
You just get to think about the
Never
quarterback.
lost the lead.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the losing quarterbacks here this weekend. We've hit on Josh Allen. C.J. Stroud is going to get back to a moment in the postseason where I think he fully takes advantage of the moment. He's that good. He's a big game quarterback. He's also younger than the guys we're about to bring up. Baker Mayfield and what Tampa did and the way they played this game, I think they're going to get back to this moment. I think they're going to try to run it back, and they're in a division where, it's a toss-up, and normally if you win that division, you don't win the following year. It's been a while since we've seen a team go back-to-back in the NFC South, even in a bad division. But the question of Jordan Love, he had a 9-game stretch. He had 21 touchdown passes and 1 interception over a 9-game stretch going into this game. I don't know how that guy, with that stretch, makes the throw he made or attempts the throw he made that ends the ball game across his body and throwing into an abyss. I don't know why he did that. With the ball, a chance to go and take advantage of either tying the game or winning the game. I don't know how much confidence they're going to have in Carlson, the kicker, to tie the game after Purdy drove down and got it. And he'd already missed previously to extend the lead. But, man, what a moment that was missed right there. Trying to make something happen. And I think the pressure of the moment got to him. The ill-advised throw, which as soon as it left his hand, what is he doing? What are you doing, Jordan Love? Don't make that throw. Don't make that throw and make LaFleur lose another game where you've got the lead.
And they're the youngest team in the NFL, but they only have one more year left of that great situation where he's on his rookie deal. Next year is his 5th year in that contract. So while it seems, hey, this is a team that's windows just open up, I believe that, but it's going to change cap-wise once they have to give him the money he's about to make. And I think Jordan Love's about to get a big contract after this next year from the Packers to be the guy. But make hay next year. They did a good job this year. On Thanksgiving morning, no one woke up thinking the Packers were going to be in the divisional playoffs leading the 49ers on the road.
Absolutely not. You're right.
With a chance to go to the NFC Championship game. So they did a good job this year. They need to make hay next year. Big Red watching on X writes in talking about Patrick Mahomes and says you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That's Mahomes' trajectory at the moment. He is. He's becoming that. It's not because people hate Patrick Mahomes, or they want him to fail because of who he is or any of that. It's because people get sick of seeing the same team win all the time. It happened to Brady. It's happened to everyone in sports. If you have enough success, that's where Mahomes is heading. And I think just like Brady, he's going to be fine with that. I think he's driven enough and competitive enough that he will find a way to be very comfortable not being the darling of everyone, people wanting to see him do well. He'll thrive on people wanting to see him fail also.
How about the teams playing at home? They're 8-2 in the postseason. Playing at home certainly has its advantages. The 2 losses, the Dallas Cowboys, who had won 16 straight, and Buffalo, who was 8-1 at home this year. Couldn't get it done. What was it like, Chad? You've got family members. Did you hear from them?
Yeah, my brother-in-law went pretty silent after the game, which I don't blame him. We were on the family group text about it. Everybody pulling for the Bills and commenting here and there during the game. He's better today. I've mentioned it's an optimistic bunch, believe it or not. I think they're forced to be, right? When you're buried up your waist in snow half the year and you're losing on wide right field goals all the time, you have no choice but to hopefully be optimistic about the future. And I am optimistic about Josh Allen. That's the key thing for the Bills. They've got the quarterback. That dude's awesome. They're going to eventually get it done. It's going to happen. I feel that for the Bills, but man, was that a missed opportunity.
Well, in this
to have that Chiefs team on the ropes and at home in that environment. And to me, it's not about the missed field goal. It's about the missed Stephon Diggs wide open, Then you had a guy in the end zone that he was throwing to, just threw it short. That opportunity to not go down and score with the ball after being handed the football on a fumble into the end zone, the most punitive play in football, fumbling it at the goal line, and if it goes an inch forward and not an inch backwards, you give the other team the ball at the 20. They got that break and then couldn't capitalize on it. That's what's going to haunt this team more than anything else.
I find it, I do smile at the fact that all of a sudden, when you consider the two teams involved and the moment, that all of a sudden they're going to consider changing the rule of fumbling through the end zone and an automatic touchback. All of a sudden, because it's Mahomes and Allen. We've seen this. It happens once or twice in a season where the local media, the local shows are covering. This is too punitive of a rule that affects the one team much greater than the other. Fumbling before you reach the end zone, going through the end zone out of bounds. All of a sudden, because it's Allen Mahomes and it's Kansas City Buffalo, where they've changed a rule already for an overtime policy. They weren't changing it prior to that, but as soon as it happens in a window where they've got greatness right there, they're going to change it. Maybe they do. But I think the issue regarding this potential change, though, that they're going to consider is what alternative rule are you putting in? So if you do fumble, are you getting the ball at the 1 where you fumble through the end zone?
You can't fumble forward. I guess it's just it's like going out of bounds, but if you fumble it forward into the end zone, then it's where the ball was fumbled.
Instead of just automatically awarding possession to the defense.
I don't like the rule. It is too punitive. I understand all that. I'll say this, though, about it. This is the unintended consequence of this that I won't like if it happens.
Okay.
It gives you no deterrent to just go crazy around the goal line with trying to extend that thing in the end zone. And I'm talking like guys getting hit by two dudes on 4th down and just launching the ball into the air forward, not caring about dropping it at all, where the ball's almost being thrown out of the end zone at times. Not even on 4th down, 2nd down, 3rd down. You get close to that thing, you don't care one bit as long as that ball's momentum is going towards the end zone, because at worst, you're going to get the ball again right there at the goal line. And I don't like that, because if you're going to take the ball into one hand, or you're rolling over, like the photo we're going to show you of Mecole Hardman rolling down on a body, butt going to the ground, I'm going to extend the ball blindly behind my back. There should be a deterrent for that. You don't do that on any other part of the field. You do it around the goal line. And right now the deterrent is, well, if you fumble doing that and it goes in the end zone, that's a big-time penalty for your team, because the other team's going to get the 20 instead of you having another crack at it from the goal line. So I don't want to see that part of it. And I don't mind it as much when I see someone dumbly in a dumb way on something that's not 4th down, trying to extend the ball in the end zone. They should be punished for that. You should be punished for that one. If it's 4th down, it's one thing and you fumble into the end zone, but there's no reason to do it.
Jason McCourty says this because there's a lot of reaction to it. Everyone wants to change this to not awarding the other team in such a harsh way. McCourty tweets and says, for those wanting to change this fumble touchback rule, every offensive player is taught to never reach the ball unless it's the last play of the game or 4th and goal. It's okay to reward the defense for making a play.
Yeah. Well, it's also okay to penalize someone for making a dumb play. That's kind of my point about it. I want the deterrent to be there. I understand it's an extreme deterrent, but I want that to be in place, because you shouldn't be doing that if it's not 4th down or an end-of-the-game situation in some way.
But
there's no reason to do it.
If you grab a face mask, if you chop block, if you, we can say whatever, helmet to helmet, you may get ejected from the game if it's that intentional. But you're not giving possession to the other team. It's not an automatic touchback. So I understand where the rule is extremely harsh. How many times did you have to watch this replay?
But you do fumble it. On the flip side of this, I'll take McCourty's argument here on this. You fumble anywhere on the field, you risk giving the ball up.
Right.
So you fumbled at the goal line, you risk giving the ball up. So instead of the other team recovering, if you fumbled it forward in the end zone, it's the other team's ball. It's not completely out of the ordinary. I get what you're saying. If there's a face mask, it's not an automatic turnover, everything else. But when you throw the ball in the air and risk interception, if it's intercepted, you fumble the ball on the 50, If the other team gets it, it's their ball. You fumble the ball at the 1. If they recover at the 1, it's their ball. So it's the same difference there.
Watch the NFL change something now. But practically every rule benefits offense. Offense is way down this year. I mean, there's some really bad offense. Practically every rule benefits the offense. And
I just don't want it to become flag football down at the goal line with guys doing acrobatics to get the ball in one hand to try to extend it.
Or the quarterback
over
just
the goal
automatically.
line. Yeah, because there's no deterrent.
Right.
You snap the ball at the 1, the quarterback, and just go Air Jordan into the end zone. And if he happens to if I'm getting hit too hard, just throw the thing out of the end zone because I'm going to get it right back here anyway.
Just tip it, we'll get it right back. That's right.